Today on the Relationship Revival Show, I'm joined by Karen McMahon. Karen is a certified relationship and divorce coach and founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. She began divorce coaching in 2010 after recognizing that the pain of her own divorce led her on a transformational journey into an incredible new life. Karen leads a team of divorce coaches in supporting men and women around the world to become calm, clear, and confident as they navigate divorce. Karen's also the host of the acclaimed Journey Beyond Divorce podcast and creator of JBD's exclusive Accelerator Divorce Recovery Program. You're listening to the Relationship Revival podcast with John DeBach, also known as Mr. Spirituality. That's me. I'm your host, giving you insights and guidance from over 10 years in the field of this amazing journey we call romance. On this show, I go over everything you need to know about how to get into a relationship, how to get the most out of a relationship, and sometimes even how to gracefully end a relationship without pulling your hair out and going crazy. And occasionally, I'm even joined by new and old friends who are also relationship experts to bring you guidance and wisdom with new perspectives. Thanks for stopping by. Karen McMahon, thank you so much for being on the show. Really excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm in New York. The sun is shining for a change, and I very much appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, by all means. I've had a couple divorce coaches on the program, and I think that, as I told you before we even started rolling here, I think it's an emerging field. It's still somewhat in its infancy. People don't quite understand what divorce coaches do, when they're helpful. And unfortunately, as a couples counselor, when I have clients who are going through therapy, sometimes the reality is it just doesn't work. And then you see them go, okay, well, what's next? And I'm a big advocate of divorce coaches because I feel at the very base level, and this is where I want you to kind of take over, right? But the very base level is there's more clarity. It usually saves a lot of money and a lot of headache if you can get a divorce coach involved before start flinging attorney demand letters at each other for 6 months or something like that. So what do you feel like is the divorce coaches and is your role in this process?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think I started back in 2010. So I remember the first time I spoke to a matrimonial attorney, they were like, "You're a divorce what?"
Right.
And so the professionals, the financial planners and attorneys would always go to a therapist, which is really valuable and helpful. So if they had a client who was emotionally really struggling, they would suggest a therapist. And so for me, a neat thing to do is compare coaching and therapy. And I just want to start out by saying I have years of therapy. It's enormously valuable. And many of my clients even will do therapy 1 week and coaching the next. And so they get the benefit of both modalities. The difference between a divorce coach and a therapist, or what a divorce coach provides, is because we live in the world of divorce, beside all the emotional stuff that we help with, which is different than therapy, and I'll get to that in a minute, we understand all of the different aspects of divorce. And so someone comes in the early stages, what kind of a divorce? What do you mean there's 4 different ways of divorcing? Litigation, mediation, arbitration, collaboration. And how do I choose between those? And how do I know what to ask an attorney to make sure I'm hiring the right one? So right from the get-go, there's a lot of practical, logistical questions. It's like you've been drop shipped into a foreign land and you don't have a map and you don't have a translation. And so we are that. We explain both the entire landscape and then what first things first is. And so we can be very helpful in connecting people with experts, but even more than that, just giving them the basic information so that they can begin to understand this journey that they're starting on.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point is, and if I could kind of rephrase it, because I deal with it in my practice as well, where people come in all the time, and as a couples counselor or therapist, they say we have communication issues, right? And it's like such a broad umbrella thing, and you as a specialist, right? If you see just like a general therapist, they might say, well, explain that to me, right? But as a couples counselor, you're like, okay, is it during arguments? Is it around the same issues? And you know exactly which questions so that you can get specific and targeted. And as a divorce coach, it sounds like a lot of people come to you and they don't even know where to start or what to expect. And you're sitting there as their guide, navigating through the process, saying, this is what's going to happen now. This is what happens next. There's a fork in the road. You could take this direction or that direction. And so sometimes when people kind of throw their hands up and say, I don't know what's wrong, we've been together 19 years. I step in and say, this is what's wrong. And right. And you do the same thing on the divorce side where it's like, this is what's going to happen. And this is also how long it's going to take, maybe how much it's going to cost. And here's how you might feel at certain times. So it seems like it's, having that almost like a Sherpa as you climb Mount Everest, like you kind of act as that real like straightforward guide of like, here's point A to B to C. Here's where you can save money. Here's where you can avoid heartache. Is that right? Am I kind of getting the sense of it?
Yeah. And within that, so we give them that scaffolding or that guide, that map for what, like someone starts talking to me about the house and I'm like, that's 6 to 12 months down the road. Let's talk about what you need to focus on now. Have you gathered all of your financial information? Do you have a financial expert that is supporting you? So what we do is we give them those guardrails, and then there's a ton of decisions to make within that. And that's where the coaching and questioning comes in, because they'll be like, what should I do?
Right.
Okay. And then we get to ask them questions so that they're answering their own question ultimately and feeling really confident about it. And then the other side of it is the emotions. And so a client can be seeing a therapist, as so many of mine are, and working through those family of origin issues, those feelings of guilt or shame, or I've lost myself. And often they'll come to me and say, I'm connecting the dots. And then he or she walked into the room and I still blew up the whole conversation. And that's where we can take what they know and begin to help them notice how they engage in conflict. And, the question of, well, tell me a little bit about being raised in a family. Well, we all yelled and screamed. And so then you begin to understand where they're coming from and help them understand, what behaviors do you have that are great and valuable that you want to hold on to? And which ones haven't been serving you? And, how do you feel about that? And what could we replace it with? And so every step of the way, we're deeply involved in the emotions, but it's more on a strategic day-to-day basis. What's going on? My teenager just blew up. He's just like his narcissistic dad. And then we can dial that back and take a look at, well, what's really going on and what do you need and how can we help you get there?
That's great. How did you get into the field to begin with?
I got divorced about 15, 16 years ago, and I had 2 children not yet in grade school.
So hold on. I'm doing the math. You got divorced 15, 16 years ago. So after you became a divorce coach. Is that right?
I became a coach in 2010. I got divorced in 2006.
Okay.
So no, I had I been a coach, I probably would have done it all the better.
Got it.
But when I got divorced, I entered a 12-step program, which was so valuable because it's all about keep the focus on you. So, which is now like the center point of our coaching business. And I had a really good therapist. And so when I emerged, and my divorce was very high conflict, my ex has some mental health challenges, very angry guy. So we spent 3.5 years in court when there was really nothing to fight over.
Yeah.
And so when I emerged, I really felt like I had become a better version of myself, that I had really used all of those struggles to stretch and grow and refine. And I was selling commercial printing, and I thought, well, that's just not going to work anymore. It just felt so meaningless. And so I began to look for purpose after such a huge life transition. I found a coach, and then I found a coaching program, and here I am.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it took long. So if you were 2006, 3 years later, you're in 2009, and you kind of went, I need a sea change here, and so a year later, that's when you kind of got started. So you kind of jumped right in.
Yeah, right after the divorce, I was making decent money. I was good at what I did. And it just seemed, like I said, just really meaningless. And also, it was an industry that was dying. So I
Yeah,
knew
that
I
always
needed to
helps to
pivot
kick you
either
in the butt
way.
too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, I've been in that situation
Yeah.
myself where it's like, okay, maybe the world's pointing me in a new direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And it's so funny because I went from this dying industry to an industry in its infancy,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the what is your program like? Do you work with every client on an individual basis differently? Is there like a general framework that you use? I'm kind of curious how you structure it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a team of six coaches and myself, and we do primarily one on one coaching, although we're starting to build online programs this year. And so while everybody comes to us at a different stage, I'll have someone who comes to me in their 4 years post divorce and still having the same fights, or someone who's on the fence and scared to leave but kind of knows they have to, or someone right in the middle. So, because of that, we have more of an emotional structure that we take people through, which has informed our 12 step, our accelerated divorce program. Whereas the logistics, you kind of meet with them where they are and help them forward. On the emotional end, no matter where you are, if you're reaching out for support, you're probably dealing with a lot of conflict,
Yeah.
uh, whether it's inner conflict or just unnecessary arguments with your soon to be ex. And so we start there with helping people to, and most people who come to us are kind of super glued to what's wrong with their soon to be ex.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's not focus on that. I mean, that ship has sailed.
Right.
So let's bring the focus back to you. So that's the one thing, is in the early stages, really helping someone continually notice if you're triggered, rather than putting all of your energy into what he or she did that triggered you. How about looking at why you're triggered, how you responded to your trigger, what would be more productive and effective? And so when we start taking them down that path, two things happen. They begin to curb the conflict. They begin to catch themselves before they throw that emotional grenade across the room.
Hmm.
And they begin to feel more confident because now they're actually focusing on something that they have full control over and they can feel empowered. Whereas when they come to us and they've been like, he should do this differently, she shouldn't do that, well, divorce is a process where you have so little control. To then spend your energy trying to control the person you're about to divorce is just really ineffective and a poor use of one's time and energy. And so that's what we do. We help to shift them to what's going on with you, where are you triggered, how are you behaving, uh, is your desire to go through this with grace and dignity, which most people do desire that. And we help them stay on that path.
That's great. You mentioned it's an accelerated divorce recovery program. So is in the name, there's the hint there that it you can get through it faster, the acceleration. Is that part of the goal?
Yeah. So what we're really accelerating is if you keep the focus on yourself, and I'll just run through some of the topics.
Yep.
So the first one is that curbing the conflict, like learning how to slow it down, take a pause. In 12-step programs, they say if you're upset, count to 10. If you're really upset, count to 100. The whole idea is once you create that pause, and Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body that overcomes us. Well, let it simmer down. It doesn't take more than 30 to 60 seconds if you're focused on it. And then you can decide, do I want to respond now? If I do, what do I want to say? And with divorce, and I remember doing this myself, I'd get some, affronting text from my soon to be ex, and my fingers would be typing away 2 seconds later. It's like, slow it down. You may not want to say that. You may not have to respond at all. And that's the first step. And we take them through the monkey mind. Half of the time we're suffering because of our why. She did that for this reason. He did it for that reason. And so now I'm all angry because I've created a story that may not be true. So we really help them to start noticing that internal behavior.
Once you do have them recognize it, are there other tools other than, taking a pause that you find useful to teach to your clients?
Yeah. So with every step, and there's 12 of them through the accelerated program, they're given new strategies and tools to focus on. So one of the things we highly encourage is, you have to feel your feelings, and you have to understand what grieving is, both for yourself and for your soon to be ex. And so, in there we talk about processing and releasing, and how journaling or talking to somebody is really valuable. In our step 4, which is focus on your solutions rather than keep getting stuck on the problem. And so we take them through a process of first noticing what they're doing, and then taking certain steps that will keep them in that solution-oriented perspective. So throughout each step, they have tools and strategies.
Yeah. That seems important to kind of benchmark certain things and say, okay, let's work on that new tool, that new skill. What do you find if you had to give someone one piece of advice? They came to you and they're lost and they're distraught, and they're like, what can you tell me? Like, another way to kind of think of it is if you're at a cocktail party or a dinner and someone's going through it and you don't have time to give them the whole spiel, what's that one little nugget that might make them actually feel like they can get through it a little bit easier? The kind of the go-to piece of advice for you, someone just starting divorce.
I think that there are two that go hand in hand. One is we're all driven by fear, and fear is a liar. And so I'll usually talk to people a few minutes, because when they say what their greatest fears are, even speaking them, a lot of people are like, well, maybe I won't be in the streets. Well, maybe I won't be completely poor. And so really getting them to kind of challenge their fear story. And then the other one, which is my favorite, regardless of what you're going through, is every upset is a setup for personal development. And so here you're going through divorce. There are going to be oodles of upsets, probably every day. And if you were to commit to refocusing on why you're so triggered, and someone could say, what do you mean? Like, these terrible things are going on. You're going to be more effective in addressing each of these if you can self-regulate. And so every upset is a setup, is an opportunity to look inside and self-regulate. And that's the biggest thing, because I think going through divorce, so many of us live in our amygdala, right? We're in fight, flight, freeze. And that creates more expenses, more conflict. And so, so those are the two. Every upset is a setup, and your greatest fears are never going to come true. Let's take a look at them and see what's more real.
So is that one of the kind of the hidden gifts, you could say, of divorce, is that it's, if you spin it that way, it's an opportunity to grow and kind of become a better version of yourself?
Yeah, we have, I have a Journey Beyond Divorce podcast, and we do ours in series. And one of our series is called Voices of Celebration. And I probably have dozens now of people who I've interviewed. And the one theme through every single one is my greatest fears never came true. In fact, quite the opposite. In fact, and I was just speaking to a woman, and she's like almost knocking on 70, married 36 years, very, very high conflict. And she's like, I am like so like over the moon about the person I am now. I've healed so much. I've refined so much. And I feel really good about how I navigated this, even though I think he did a really nasty job. I feel good. And when you can go through such a upending transition and feel like I did it with grace and dignity, nobody's happy with what they walked away with. But if everyone's just a little bit unhappy, we've actually done a really good job. And so that's what you're looking for. You're looking to feel like it's okay. I can deal with it. And I now have the rest of my life as this new version of myself to go out and live my best life. And that's really what we guide people to.
What do you think people should be looking for in a divorce coach?
That's a great question. I would say a couple of things. One is there's a lot of coaches out there, and there's a lot of programs where someone could be trained for like 10 or 20 hours and hang a shingle. So the first thing is we offer a free coaching session, and many coaches do. So that's really valuable. You have the conversation, and you tap into your intuition. Are they asking more than they're telling? Are they informative? Do they have resources to support you? So we have 250 podcast episodes and hundreds of articles, and these are all from experts, not just from us coaches. And so if you're going to hire someone, do they have the experience and the resources to support you? And in that conversation, are they telling you what to do? Because that's really not what you want. Or are they helping you find your best path forward based on the questions that they're asking?
And when did you decide to expand and have it be more than just you? Because now it's you and 6, or you're one of 6 coaches in the.
I'm one of 7 right now.
You're one of 7.
Yeah.
So how did you expand, and how did you decide to expand?
I like the business building part of what I do. And so pretty early on, I just ended up with more leads than I could handle. And I thought, this is not an area where you can say, hey, check back in with me in 3 months.
Right.
Like the need is now. And then I started seeing a lot of my colleagues who loved coaching, but really would prefer not to market and grow a business. Yeah. And so my desire was to say, if I can help that many more individuals going through divorce, support that many more coaches who are really good coaches, but just don't like to build a business, and not be a solopreneur, which is a little lonely, but actually have a team that I'm building this with, then it's a triple win. And so I think I started in 2012. If I started I went through coaching school in 2010, started my business at the end of 2010. And by 2012, I had my first group, my first team. And that too, as with everything, is a learning curve. I mean, you have your own business. So it's like even running my coaching business offers many opportunities to turn my upsets into setups.
Yeah, for sure. As a divorce attorney, they're kind of regulated to the states that they have passed the bar in. As a coach, do you work nationwide?
Actually, we work across the English-speaking world, so we have a small percentage, but we work internationally as well. And so, because for me, my Journey Beyond Divorce podcast is really where 90% of our leads come from. So people listen, they're listening to the experts that I'm speaking to, and then they reach out for support. And it's really exciting because it does cross all borders.
Oh, wow. Where's the furthest you've been out in terms of your coaching? New Zealand, I guess, would be.
Yeah. So I guess, we've had a bunch of people in the UK, Australia, we've done Spain, we've done the British Islands, Canada. So, yeah.
And is the process generally like phone calls, Zoom calls on a practical level? What does it look like to work with a coach?
Yeah, if someone reaches out, the first thing we do is schedule a call so that they can just experience us, and so they'll either get me or one of the other coaches on the team, and I also have junior coaches up to myself, so we try to have a spread of fees so that we can meet many
Yeah,
people
sure.
where they're at financially, and then yes, I think the majority of us do Zoom. Some people prefer phone calls, and that's fine. When I started back in 2012, I did a lot of coaching in person, but I would say by 2015 that was pretty minimal.
Yeah.
And even if someone lives 40 minutes away, when you're going through a divorce and you've got kids, life is so hectic.
Yeah.
It's really so much easier to just jump on a call and keep the commute to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well,
Yeah.
what's the best way for people to reach out and work with you?
So, journeybeyonddivorce.com is the website. The podcast is Journey Beyond Divorce. And we have a free, we specialize, which I didn't really get to speak much about, but we specialize in high conflict divorce. We coach people no matter where they are, but that's our specialty. And
Well,
so today,
let's talk about that for a sec, because I think it is important to delineate the difference between a highly contentious, high conflict, complicated divorce versus one that isn't as wrought with conflict. How would you define it, and how would you kind of the benchmarks for people to look at that are, where if they're starting a divorce, that where they go, this is going to be complicated.
yeah. So, divorce has conflict in it, obviously, because two people are choosing to split. It becomes high conflict when the balance of power is really different. And so some of the tells are you might have a spouse that can't ever own their part. So it's always your fault. And even if it's not your fault because of something you did, it made them do it. So that makes it high conflict. I have a client whose spouse has so much trauma that she just shuts down and she can't make any decisions, and she's very reactive and she gets angry. I really have a hard time with everybody being called a narcissist these days.
Sure.
Because there's so many different, whether it's trauma or mental health issues, or someone could be on the autistic spectrum. And so what we say is when communication is really hard, when coming to any agreement, when reconciling anything is like moving mountains, there's so many decisions and there's so many details, it's going to be high conflict. We don't have to demonize the other person. We don't have to label the other person, but how our client chooses to navigate with that person is going to be key. And typically it's been pretty sloppy up until now, which is why they've ended up where they are. And if you're in a high conflict marriage, typically the person who comes to us is dealing with some codependency issues, some people pleasing issues. And so there's this incredible opportunity to look at what they brought to the table that attracted them to this high conflict personality, so that they can use this difficult time to work through those things, so that when they emerge, they're a better parent and they can go out into the world and find a healthier romantic partner.
Great. So you specialize in high conflict. The website is Journey. Say it again. It's Journey.
It's Journey Beyond Divorce. It takes you to JBD Divorce Support, but Journey Beyond Divorce is the name of the company. If you type that in .com, you'll get right there.
Forwards you right over Journey Beyond Divorce.
Yeah.
Got it. And so we were talking about people and the ways that they can, work with you and reach out to you. And we got into high conflict. Is there a specific, free coaching or a giveaway that you have that kind of helps with, people looking at that type of divorce?
Yeah. So if anyone who's listening, who's curious, what we did was we created an assessment. It's 10 toxic tells. So how toxic is your relationship is the name of the assessment. And if you were to go to JBD divorcesupport.com /toxic relationship quiz, and I can send that to you as well.
Yeah, I'll
John.
post it in the show notes.
Then,
for sure.
Yeah, then you'll get on our email list. It's a really great, it's 10 really key questions that once you answer those and you look at your score, you're going to know. And most people kind of already know. And so this is a really great way of gaining clarity.
That's great.
Because what happens is when you're in these relationships, everything gets so normalized right after a decade or so that it's like, no, she's just mad or he's just this. And,
yeah.
and so when they read these, I've had a number of people take it and they're like, wow, yes, always, always, you know, and that makes a big difference.
Right. So journeybeyonddivorce.com, there's a, I'll paste the link for the specific Toxic Tell kind of questionnaire assessment in the show notes as well. Karen McMahon, thank you so much for being here and kind of sharing your perspective and lens of the world and how you help people. I think more people can use guidance like this. So I'm always happy to help promote and get the word out.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
If you're interested in learning how to get the absolute most out of your romantic relationships, then you're in luck, because I have put together a free workshop or masterclass, if you will, about 3 secrets that people in happy relationships have discovered. You can view the workshop at mrspirituality.com/3 secrets. Again, it's completely free. Just go there and watch it. It'll help you on your journey, give you some wisdom, some things to think about. The website again is mrspirituality.com/3 secrets. That's mrspirituality.com/3, the word secrets. It's all yours. Enjoy.